Hello everyone, I'm Santiago, and today I'm gonna be testing Dying Light Bad Blood on the GeForce GTX 1060, 3GB. I'll be doing 1080p, 1440p and 4K. To skip none of those sections of the video, check the timestamps down in the description. So first of all, I'll show you 1080p, and with maximum settings, excepting PCSS and NVIDIA depth of field, I'm able to stay over 60 frames per second all the time. Then I switched to 1440p, trying to maintain 60 frames per second by just lowering the settings, and it's quite difficult to maintain that target sometimes when there's a lot going on. Then I just crank up the settings, trying to stay over 30 at 1440p, and finally at 4K, I overclocked the GTX 1060, I added 400 MHz to the memory clock, and I kept the core clock at around 2 GHz, and with pretty much medium settings, I'm able to stay over 30 frames per second the big majority of the time. And I didn't test the i5 8400 because the i3 8100, in this case at least, was more than enough to maintain over 60 frames per second consistently. The GPU was at 99% the big majority of the time, so if I put the i5 8400 there won't be any difference to performance, you'll be seeing exactly the same results, but with less CPU usage. This is a PvP game, completely separated from Dying Light, the single player game. They drop 12 players into this map, there are zombies in between, they have to collect samples, and just one of them will just flee in a helicopter. That's pretty much how the game works. People still play this game, but not enough to get into a match very quickly. Sometimes I stay over 5 minutes in a lobby, but luckily this game allows us to jump by ourselves into a match without anybody else. I tested a couple matches first to see the difference in performance, and overall it was pretty similar. I noticed a little higher CPU usage when there were many players close to you, but overall I consider this a good reference of actual gameplay, especially when there are many zombies on screen, plus fire, plus explosions, plus a lot of vegetation on screen. That was my worst case scenario. With that out of the way, the options menu is pretty much the same as Dying Light, and the options that gave me the biggest boost in performance by lowering them were shadow map size, first of all, the shadows, then the foliage quality helped on places with a lot of foliage, obviously, it was a good FPS boost in some occasions. The anti-aliasing option seems to be some post-process solution, I got around 3 to 5 FPS more, and then the NVIDIA HBAO Plus is another big hit to the frame rate. The view distance option compared to the day one version of Dying Light is not a huge performance hit, but it's not a huge difference from the highest to the minimum. There are less objects in the distance, but you're not usually paying attention to that. The important stuff always has decent detail to it, at least in my opinion, but I'll keep it at 30% to have some good view distance and a couple extra FPS. The NVIDIA depth of field, when you get acid thrown at you on some other instances, this effect kicks in and it's a huge FPS hit. I'm talking about 20 to 30 FPS dropped from 1 second to another. In my opinion, just turn it off. I don't see anything being added to the game that makes this worth it, so just disable it to keep your frame rate more consistent. And the NVIDIA PCSS is for the shadows. From high shadows and above, you can enable this option, and it's a more realistic way to see the shadows. The edges will be softer the farther it is from the object. In my opinion, this is not worth the effort to enable. It's an FPS hit, but you're not actually looking at that while playing the game. You're moving around through the environment very quickly, and that's pretty much the options menu. The texture quality option, if you have a 2 gig card, use medium, and if you have something more than 2 gigs, use high. You only have 2 options for that. And in some cards, the shadow map size goes up to high. It won't allow you to select very high. An example of this is the GTX 750 Ti. But yeah guys, that's pretty much it. I hope you keep enjoying the video. Thanks for watching and see you next time.
Ugh.